Hello, welcome to the March 2020 Logos Mythos Book Club Live. I'm so glad that you guys have joined us, and if you're joining us live or later, either way is great. So we are going to talk about books tonight. We are going to share some things that we've been reading. I'm joined tonight by my husband Tony. He has got some great recommendations as well, so both of us are coming at you with so many ideas of things for you guys to read. By the time we're done, you're going to have a very full to-be-read list. So the first thing, though, I wanted to tell you guys is, just in case any of you are writers, specifically women writers, this week happens to be the Women in Publishing Summit, and I am one of the speakers. My co-author and co-podcaster, May Smith, and I were able to be two of the speakers for this year's summit. And we joined almost 100 other amazing, incredible women entrepreneurs in the publishing industry who are speaking at this summit. So if you are interested, I have put a link in this post with the video, so you can go ahead and find the link there. That is an affiliate link. Now, this summit is completely free, so you can hop on there, you can register using our link, and it'll be completely free. And with the free access, you can hear our presentation, which went live today. You can hear that until I think around midday tomorrow. Sometime in the morning they'll kind of cut that off. But each of the videos that go up each day are up for like 24 hours for the free pass. Now, if you don't have time, though, like me, to get everything in 24 hours, because it is a lot, you can upgrade and you can purchase the All Access Pass, which means you get all of the videos and you can have them anytime you want. They're always there. There's also a ton of other bonus stuff, including we submitted an exclusive companion workbook to our book, Finders Keepers, a practical approach to find and keep your writing critique partner. And that is what our presentation and workshop is all about, critique partners. So if you guys are interested, just click on that link, and if you have any questions, please let me know. I'll be happy to answer any questions you have. This is just a fantastic summit. You guys will learn so much, and beyond that, you will be encouraged and inspired and find yourself in the midst of an amazing community of women entrepreneurs who are just incredible with the things that they've done and the things that they are doing. So it's the Women in Publishing Summit, and of course March is Women's History Month, so that's part of why Alexa, who is the one who started the summit and does such a great job with it, that's part of why she chose this month and the first week of this month to have this summit. So there you go. That's what's been taking my time today. I've been enjoying some of those. And so into our topic. So the past several months on our live book club, I have been kind of going on some little topics. I've had some book launches. I've had some books coming out, and I've talked a lot about those. Last month we had Valentine's Day, and so I thought it would be a great time to talk about love in books, but I decided not to focus on just the sappy kind, but some of the other kinds too. You know, love between siblings, love between friends, parent-child, and all of that kind of stuff, and I think that that was a fun one. So I thought it was about time, though, that we got back to just sharing what we've been reading. And so I have got several books that I want to share with you guys, but my husband has got some really great ideas specifically for the guys out there, and also specifically for anyone who doesn't have a ton of time to be able to sink into a really in-depth book. So if you're looking for some recommendations like that, then he's got some great ones.
Yep, absolutely. I don't always have a lot of time to read in-depth books, so and I try to work through at least one a month or one every other month, or sometimes it takes me 2 months. But I do like to read, and especially, but we're all busy, and sometimes when you get home from work, you're tired. Reading 30, 40 pages might not be something you can do. So what I really have started to enjoy is reading books where I can just sit and read something in one sitting of maybe 15 to 20 minutes. So things that are compilation books. So one that I am reading through now it's a nonfiction work. It's by Justin Holcomb. It's called Know the Creeds and Councils. And it is a theology work. And I know that that's not everyone's cup of tea, but there are similar books in a field that you're interested in, whether it's a technical field or whether it's fiction, that's going to have something similar where you've got probably 10 to 15 pages of material to go over. And you can kind of digest it right there in one 10 to 15 minute, maybe even 20 minutes, however long you have, and then you're done. So if you can't pick that book up for another couple of days because you're busy or you get home from, like I work a lot of nights, so sometimes when I get home it's 12 o'clock at night and I don't want to read that day, or I just don't have time. But if I'm working through a book, I may forget what I was reading, get too many days removed from it, and you start to forget what you read. So that's one way to do it. And then there's a fiction work that I'm going through as well. It's the Father Brown Mysteries. It's actually a present from Joy. That I really like this because not only do I sometimes get home from work and not have a lot of time to read, I don't have a lot of brain power to devote to a nonfiction work or a technical book. But I still want to do something a little more active than watch TV. So I want to read. And so I'll read one of these mysteries. Again, it's about 15 pages worth of material. You can read it in one sitting. And even if you don't, maybe you fall asleep 4 pages in, guilty of that. Uh, it's not an in-depth plot to where you can't just pick that up the next day and you won't feel lost. And then if you do just want to work through, you don't want to do the short story or maybe you just want to work through a longer work. Find a novel that isn't so intricate and in depth that you can't pick up the plot a few days removed. So I know for me, one of my favorites, I love Tom Clancy. The Cardinal and the Kremlin is one that I recommend. And I'll admit, Tom Clancy's not exactly the simplest plot. There's a lot going on in his books, but the way he writes is so well done. Um, the story is very engaging, and it seems to be very memorable. So find works like that where you just get engrossed in that story and it's hard to forget, or they're bite-sized and you can just finish it in one sitting. And there's tons of them. I know I have mine are both fairly specific, where they're both in the field of theology. Even the Father Brown's mysteries it deals with some theological concepts because you're following a priest that solves crimes. But there's just a ton of them, whether it's sci-fi or action adventure or suspense. There's just tons and tons of compilations of short stories out there, and they're a really good solution to help you stay reading, but understanding you don't have a lot of time.
Yeah, that's a great suggestion. And if you do like fantasy and sci-fi, of course, there's the Crux anthology, which I know I've mentioned before. I happen to have a story in there, but there's 15 other amazing stories in there. There it is, and you guys can get this on Amazon. And the best part about it is all profits go directly to Compassion International. So it's pretty cool. And each one of those stories in there, you can, for the most part, you can read them in one sitting as well. So it's one of those kind of things. So I'm about to share some of the stuff that I've been reading and am about to start reading. But while I'm doing that, I would love to hear what you guys are reading, or if you are looking for specific recommendations. We are going to be covering most of the genres amongst all of the books that we're sharing tonight. So hopefully you'll find something that will interest you in what we're going to share tonight. So you've already had mystery, and I guess intrigue or spy thriller kind of thing is what Clancy writes. Nonfiction, theology, Christian theology. Okay, so now as we get into mine, and I get to share first the book that Tony gifted me for Christmas, and this is No Man's Land, and this is by Simon Tolkien, and yes, he is indeed the grandson of J.R.R. Tolkien. Now, this is not hobbits and wizards and all that kind of stuff. This is actually set during World War I, and it was greatly inspired by his grandfather's service during that war. It focuses on the Battle of the Somme, which I'm sure I'm saying that wrong. I'm so sorry. I should have looked that up. But I will say I really enjoyed this work. There were some things in it that I'm not going to go into that I had some questions about and had some opinions on, but there are other things in it that I absolutely adore. And I think that Simon Tolkien shows his passion and his mastery when he's writing the sections where his main character is rushing into battle, into the thick of all of this, running into the trenches, running across no man's land. Those are some of the best, most well-written sections that I think I've ever read. So I highly recommend that if that is something that you're looking for. This would be considered kind of literary fiction. It's going to be a little bit more gritty. Okay, so there's going to be, it's war, and it was a rough war. So, you can imagine he doesn't shy away from the atrocities of that war and trench warfare. So highly recommend that. I also read a couple of others that I'm just going to mention very quickly. I read Wild Horses of the Summer Sun, and that was a memoir written by a woman who goes to Iceland just about every year with another group of ladies, and they go there to ride the Icelandic horses. It was very interesting. I am a huge horse lover, so it was kind of up my alley, and I learned a lot about Iceland that I never knew, and that fascinated me. And then I also read A Grief Observed by C.S. Lewis, and this was a book that I'd requested it from my library, and it was out. Like, all the copies were out for quite a while, so it took me a while to get it, and it was actually past the time when my purpose of requesting it. I really wanted to read, because this is Lewis's, it's his raw emotions following the death of his wife, Joy. And I was specifically wanting to read that for some research purposes with This Good Thing. But by the time I got it, we were already past that. But it was still an excellent read, just to see his heart and to watch him through that grief process. It was a very difficult time in his life, of course. And then, right now, what I'm reading is A Hobbit, a Wardrobe, and a Great War. And this has been on my list for a while. So this is nonfiction. Okay, so we've had a memoir and then another nonfiction. Yeah, I've actually read quite a bit of nonfiction. Anyway, so this is nonfiction, but it is fascinating because it looks at J.R.R. Tolkien and C.S. Lewis, and it specifically, the author Joseph LeConte goes into the effects that their time in the war had on them and on the writings they produced. And he also shows how incredibly different from many of the other writers of that same time period Tolkien and Lewis were. They, obviously, their faith was a huge part of their writing, a huge part of their life, and it remained a huge part of their life. Now, Lewis, of course, was an atheist during the time he was in the war. He didn't come to be a Christian until later in his life, but it seemed to have the opposite effect on so many people. It was a time where many people were turning away from the thought of religion and faith, which is very interesting. He goes into a lot of that here, and it's fascinating, really fascinating. And I'm actually almost done with it, but I had picked up another book, which I'm going to talk about in a second, and I'll come back to finish this. But yeah, so be looking out, because I'll have a review on this, but definitely excellent. I want this book on my shelf. Just as a resource, because so many of the things that he says are fascinating and fantastic. So definitely recommend that book. And then, so I have the privilege of knowing so many amazing writers, okay? And I get to occasionally read some books before they even come out. So my dear friend Michelle Keener, and I'm going to pull this up. All right, you might remember that I read her book. Well, I've actually read all of her books, but except for her very first one, which I still have to get. But I read Mission Hollywood back last year when it first came out. Oops, sorry. Yeah. everything's backward on here, so I have to remember which way we were talking about that before. So anyway, Mission Hollywood, this was her first one in the Red Carpet Romance series. And if you guys know me at all, you know I'm not a huge romance person necessarily, but Michelle writes so beautifully. I love her work. This would be considered sweet romance. Okay, so it's clean, it's good, it's wholesome, and the best thing about it is, yes, her characters, some of her characters are believers, they are Christians, some are not, but everything that they go through, their reactions to things, the way that they deal with the problems that arise throughout the book is so true to life. Okay, they're Christians, but they struggle. They get frustrated. They come up against a tragedy in their life, and they ask the questions, and they ask why, and they struggle with wanting to reach out and help someone who has wrong with them. And so the way that she has her characters interact is realistic, and I think sometimes that is not what you get when you have Christian fiction. You get something that may not feel quite as real, where everyone is just too good, and that's not reality. And so Michelle does such a fantastic job of that. And so the reason I'm talking about that book is this is Made in Hollywood, and this is the second book in this series, and the main character in this one happens to be one of my favorites from the first book, Noah, and so we get more of his story in this book, and so far it is incredible. I really thought, if I had not been talking about falling asleep after a few minutes into reading, if I had not been so exhausted last night, I really thought that I was going to be up all night with this book. Because I read like 4 chapters last night and just knew, okay, well, I just have to keep reading until it's over because it's so great. She has such great characters, like I said, and they're realistic, and so I really enjoy that. But her book, Made in Hollywood, will be out next Tuesday, so that's March 10th is when that will release. And Mission Hollywood, I just saw this tonight right before we started recording. She's got Mission Hollywood, the ebook version is up for only 99 cents as kind of a celebration that the second book is coming out next week. So if you're interested, definitely grab Mission Hollywood. You won't regret it. So that's my plug for her book. And then a couple of other books that I have that I'm planning on reading next. I've actually had this book for a while, and this is called My Heart Cries Out. And if you are familiar with Christian nonfiction, especially in the counseling genre, Paul David Tripp is a well-known name, and this is a lot of poetry and reflections, meditations on scripture. So you could actually use this book as a devotional. Every one of the poems ends with, for further study and encouragement, read, and it gives you a passage from scripture, which I think is very cool. Plus, there are just beautiful pictures throughout. It's a very beautiful, beautiful book. My library happened to have this, so I'm excited to read this. And then 2 more that I'm going to share with you, or actually 3 more, real quick. So this is Coram Deo, and this is a book of poetry written by a young author, and who happens to be the daughter of a good friend of mine. So I am very excited to read this. It's just very short, very simple, poetry from her life, and I'm excited to dive into this one. And then I have won 2 books in the last couple of weeks. Every now and then I have like a little lucky streak with that kind of thing, I guess. I don't know. Anyway, so the first book I don't have yet. It's on its way, but it's a book that I'm going to share with my kids. So if you have kids, this is a middle grade historical fiction. It is called The Last Cherry Blossom, and it's written by my dear friend Kathleen Birkinshaw. And this book is set during World War II. The main character is 12 years old, and the main character is based on Kathleen's mother, who lived in Hiroshima at the time of the bomb. So I am so excited to get this book and to share it with my kids and to use it in school to help them understand the just the real aspect of people who lived during that time, specifically kids their own age who lived during that time. So I'm hoping to do a little bit with some of their other homeschool friends, because we homeschool, and kind of have, you know, an event together. And Kathleen has offered to do a little Skype chat with our kids and talk with them a little bit more about the book. So she is a huge advocate for, making sure something like that doesn't happen again in our world. So she's a great person, a huge encourager. And then the other book that I won is called Road to Somewhere. And this is by Julie Meyerson Brown. And I read her book, Long Dance Home. I guess it's been a year and a half ago or something like that. And then I read her novella, which is also set in Clearwater. That's her little town that all of these books are set in. And this would be women's fiction. And once again, I love her characters. They're fun. They're spunky. They're just realistic, and they remind you of people that that you hang out with. So I'm very excited to read this one. And the really interesting thing for you guys is, if this one piques your interest, I will be giving away this copy sometime once I've read it. Not until then. But I told her, I would like to just hoard all the books to myself, but I think that it would probably be a nice thing to share this one. So she has signed this, so it will be an autographed copy that I will be giving away in the next couple of months as soon as I get a chance to read it. And you'll be able to read my review and see what I thought about it, and then I'll give it away. Maybe on here, on one of our lives, or something else. I don't know. I'm open to suggestions too. So you guys, if you have thoughts on that, let me know. So I think that's about it. Do you have anything else to add?
Nothing
Or
else.
a topic? Okay.
Nope.
All right, so I think what I'm going to do next month in April, so April is my birthday month. I'm not going to tell you which day because that's set to private on every social media thing, and nobody's allowed to tell people. I'm pointing at you, Megan, because she knows it. So anyway, because it's my birthday month, and at that point, I hope I will be transitioning into reading fantasy, and that's where I'm going to be reading that's pretty much what I'm going to be focusing on for the rest of the year, as I get ready to start writing my own fantasy later this summer. So at that point, I think I'm going to talk to you guys a little bit about fantasy and what books I've decided to read, because I have a huge list. You guys gave me a lot of great suggestions a few months back when I asked for them, and I have some books that I definitely want to read for specific reasons, and so we'll see what ends up hitting the list and making the list, and I'll share that with you guys in April. So until then, ask if you have questions for book recommendations, and please share what you've been reading. We'll post every week on Mondays, and you can comment on any of those on any of my social media and let me know what you're reading and share that with other readers. So you guys have a great night, and we'll see you next month. Bye.